There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel and another wee book haul. I started doing this last week and I loved it so much. The reason I have started doing 3 books only book hauls is because I have the time and energy and wherewithal to get one of those filmed, edited, and posted every week. Whereas my longer book hauls, they take a lot of planning and organization and a heck of a lot longer editing process. And so this is just really fun for me. And I think I'm probably going to keep doing this as well as the occasional longer book haul. And also probably fold my In Other Words into a similar, more condensed format so that they can come out more regularly. So I'm really excited about this, and according to the comments I received on last week's wee book haul, some of you are too. Without further ado, here are tonight's 3 books. The first one is one of my most anticipated releases of 2023, the Indigenous novel Empty Spaces by Jordan Abel. Jordan Abel is a queer Nishga writer from Vancouver. I thought he lived in Edmonton. I guess I was wrong. And I read his last book, which was kind of a hybrid memoir, critical theoretical work that just blew me away, and that was called Nishga. And so on the basis of how much I loved that, I couldn't wait for his debut novel to come out, and of course I've now had it sitting on my pile for several weeks, if not a few months, and haven't gotten to it yet, but sure look forward to getting to it. Like Nishga was, this is a physically beautiful book with nice end papers and has some illustrations. And this is a boundary-breaking literary novel that kind of grew out of Nishga. And if you have read it, or if you remember my review, which I'll link in the show notes, part of that was he was integrating descriptions of landscape from James Fenimore Cooper's classic, The Last of the Mohicans, into his, Jordan Abel's, Indigenous father's artwork. And this novel has grown out of that. He's reimagining The Last of the Mohicans from the contemporary perspective of an urban Nishga's person whose relationship to land and traditional knowledge was severed by colonial violence. I'm reading that because I couldn't have summarized it without reading it. It's beautifully expressed there. It sounds fascinating, and it's going to be a challenging read, and I mean challenging in terms of the density and so on. There appear to be no paragraph breaks, at least not in the first chapter. So let's see, how much of it will I read to give you a taste? I'll read most of the first page. A deep, narrow chasm, black rocks. The river lies still on those black rocks. A mile above there is a tumbling. There is a moment. At this very moment there is a tumbling in the air a mile above us that runs straight through the open heavens and into some other place. A deep hollow. No shape. No consistency. No breaking some 100 feet in the air. Some places are softer than others. Some 100 feet up in the air. Some right angles enter into narrow passageways, and some right angles break off a mile in the air above us. These rocks are full of cracks. Water has worked through some deep hollows, breaking here, wearing there, breaking and wearing until the chasm separates into 2 caverns. Some 100 feet in the air, there is no danger. I'll stop there randomly, but quite intriguing. Next is a translated novel from France. I'm pretty sure the author lives in France. It is called The Ghost of Frederick Chopin by Éric Faye, and translated from the French by Sam Taylor. A different translator than the one that I read several years ago. I think probably in my first year of BookTube I remember reviewing it, called Nagasaki by Éric Faye, and that was translated by Emily Boyce, and I loved Nagasaki. This one is a little bit longer. It is a short novel rather than a novella. And what is it about? Set in Prague, 1995. It's about a journalist who's making a documentary about a middle-aged woman whose name seems Czech to me, who has no musical training, who claims she has been visited by the ghost of Chopin, hence the title. Good thing I got over my allergy to ghosts in my fiction, because I am totally over it. Doesn't mean it's going to work in every novel for me, but I don't reject novels because they have ghosts in them anymore. Because I've read several where the ghosts really were important to the story and worked for me. I'll read the first full paragraph, which is just under a full page. The cobblestones were damp and slippery, but, all things considered, he decided it was better to risk twisting his ankle than to lose sight of the woman walking quickly 100 feet ahead of him. This woman who, according to Slaney, was in communication with Frederick Chopin a century and a half after his death. A strange case. If anyone had told him 10 years before that 10 years later, on this gloomy Monday, an All Saints' Day in the twilight of the century, he would no longer be a member of the secret police, but would be reduced to playing private detective in a country that had been sliced in half and converted to capitalism, he would have cursed the future. Then again, if that same someone had added that he would be spying on a former school dinner lady who transcribed dozens of posthumous scores dictated to her by the Polish composer, the fanciful part of his personality would have been awakened, and he would have thought that, on further consideration, the future merited a closer look. And if, moreover, that mysterious someone had told him that the woman in question was the widow of a recalcitrant individual whom he had followed years before, he would have seen in his future occupation of detective the suggestive glow of destiny, of a torch handed on from past to present. Well, that is a very beguiling opening paragraph. Oh my goodness! And the last one is a novella from Australia, and I'm embarrassed at how much I paid to order this directly from the publisher, but I was just drawn to it when I saw a tweet about it, or I saw something about it, and it's not available anywhere, or at least at the time I bought it, 4 or 5 months ago. It was only available from Australia, and shipping from Australia to Canada is not cheap, so I paid probably more for the shipping than I did for the book, but I have it, and let's hope I read it and enjoy it, and that I read it before it becomes more easily and inexpensively available here in Canada. Here it is. The Sitter by Angela O'Keeffe. 2023 release from the University of Queensland Press, and I have no idea what it was about it. I mean, I like that cover illustration. And if I could read the small print, I could tell you, but it's I think I can vaguely read the word Cézanne. Set in Paris 2020, a writer confined to her hotel room in the early days of the COVID pandemic, struggling to finish a novel about Hortense Cézanne, wife and sometimes muse of the famous painter. So that would explain the cover illustration. Angela O'Keeffe. This is not her debut novel, maybe her second. She grew up in Queensland, and it doesn't say where she lives now, because they don't say where writers live now. I guess it's none of our business anymore. And I'm quite taken with the epigraph. I've started reading a lot of the epigraphs because they do catch my eye. Here is one from Gaston Bachelard, from the Poetics of Space. Shade, too, can be inhabited. I'll read the first 3 very short paragraphs. From the window of a hotel room in Paris, a view of rooftops, the brown river, a cobblestone street, one corner of a scaffolded, burned-out church. It is a morning in March 2020, and the air holds a breath of warmth. The sky is a pale, hopeful blue. Normally on such a morning that is chilly but nevertheless heralds the first hint of spring, the street would be almost crowded, the mood bordering on flamboyant, as the first hint of spring is more a cause for celebration than spring itself. But this morning, from this window, just 3 people can be seen in the street. 2 women walk side by side, each carrying brown paper bags of groceries, each wearing a blue surgical mask. A small child strides out ahead of them, stepping every now and then to gaze with curiosity at the cobblestones, as if the cobblestones are marvelous, as if the cobblestones possess some secret that will any moment make itself known. Well, I quite like that. That was good for me. Was it good for you? Thanks for watching.